Welcome back to the third and last part of the talk on ecosystem restoration by Professor Nitin Karmakar. This part, through case studies again, will speak of the agitations that have led to ecosystem conservation and restoration, and shall end with the different methods that can be adopted in ecosystem restoration, their differences, their advantages and limitations.
I was mentioning basically about the agitation that went on, and to a great extent these kind of agitations have saved some of the very vulnerable ecosystems. The examples are Sardar Sarovar Dam, the Tehri Dam, the Silent Valley, the Chipko movement. Sundarlal Bahuguna basically, who was to an extent led this particular movement, who recently actually passed away during this COVID period. But he to a great extent was responsible in restoring a very sort of a fragile Himalayan ecosystem through this particular agitation. So, these are the case studies through which we understand how people are getting sensitized about the environment, how they are coming forward to put in a check on this degradation systems as such. This is an example coming from the London city. Restoration in London after the great stink of 1858. You can see, in fact, this was the response to the great stink. The entire drainage system needed to get improved, and the restoration of streams was undertaken. Something similar happens in all metro cities, wherein for various different purposes, for industrialization or for the purpose of basically creating roads or for the purpose of housing, we have diverted many of these natural streams, and then the effluent in a larger quantity coming from the industry, without getting them treated, we are emptying it into the natural system. This too greatly responsible for the contamination of the water body, as well as sometimes the bad smell that you generally get whenever you enter into a metro city like Mumbai. So, this is what they did, the residents of the Indian London city. The corporation was involved in improving the entire underground drainage system to completely remove the great stink. So, we have seen variety of restoration projects as such, and they can be variable, highly variable in fact. So, this is one such example, a more complex and typical restoration project. It is a marsh restoration in the Washington DC. You can see it after the restoration, prior to the restoration, but again, as I said, there has to be a participation of humankind in doing this restoration. Another activity that we do, or rather I can call it as exploitation that we carry out, is the mining activity. We have different kinds of minerals, some of them are native minerals, some of we have to bring them from greater depths. They are used for various different purposes, for pigmentation, for industry, for construction, for various different electronic purposes, and so on and so forth. The RE, for example, the gold, the silver, the tin, the tungsten, but all that is we are exploiting from the planet Earth, from the crustal part of the planet Earth as such, for which we have to do different kind of mining activities. It is an open cast kind of a mining activity, sometimes it can be underground. For example, the Kolar gold field, the Kolar region close to Bangalore. Now the mining has been closed. So where we have gone down to a depth of almost 3 kilometers, and so much of a material that we have removed just to get a small material of gold. We have created tailings or waste have been dumped on thousands of, I would say, acres of area in that particular region. And when obviously this material has come up, the rain that it receives, because of which certain toxic element again gets infiltrated into the close by stream, that is how causing contamination of the water bodies as such. Sometimes the mining can happen on mountain top. What are the harmful environmental problems that are associated with such mining activities? Devegetation and defacing of landscape. We are Puneites, many times we travel to Mumbai. We always speak about the express highway. On either side you must have seen what an ugly landscape that we have created. For the making of the expressway, for the purpose of road material, we have excavated largely in the close proximity, and we haven't done any restoration. We have in fact all those mines now been kept as it is, and those holes basically have created a very ugly kind of a landscape. Subsidence of land. So when you remove something from top, obviously the one that is down below, which actually is been maintained because of the pressure of the overlying material, once that material is removed, that pressure is removed. So that land becomes more or less open to the vagaries of climate, and there can be subsidence. Groundwater contamination, air pollution, surface water pollution, and occupational health hazards. So these are the devastating sort of environmental problems which are very harmful associated with the mining activity. There are quite a few problematic mines in India. For example, the Jadugoda uranium mines in Jharkhand. We all know we do not have plentiful of uranium in the Indian subcontinent. In fact, for various different purposes we have to depend on, we have to in fact import it from other countries like Australia or United States of America for the purpose of making, basically we have been making use of the uranium for peaceful purposes, for generation of electricity, for generation of energy. But we have to depend on some other people. Some other people have made use of it for destruction purpose, making of an atom bomb. We have seen it like how these atom bomb to a great extent destructed cities in Japan. The Jharia coal mines, Jharkhand. Coal is a very peculiar kind of a material. In fact, there can be other sort of a very poisonous elements or gases that are associated. Sometimes they get ignited, there can be a break of fire out there, and then the black dust, obviously, especially the mining community or those laborers which go down to pick up the coal, their entire of the basically respiratory system to a great extent get damaged. Sukinda chromite mine, that is another sort of a problematic mine coming from the Orissa region. Kudremukh iron ore mines. Kudremukh is basically part of the Western Ghats, and Western Ghat is a biodiversity hotspot, you can call it. The entire of the mining actually is situated in such a biodiversity rich kind of area as such. So when you undertake mining over there, obviously it would create adverse effect on the surrounding sort of ecosystem. The East Coast bauxite mines of Orissa, the northeastern coal fields of Assam, these are some of the important examples. They actually gives us a lesson what adversity basically that comes along with the exploitation of these natural resources as such. What are the remedial measures? Reduce, reuse and recycle. This is very much important as. In fact, these days we actually in fact treat the water, and it is being used for various different secondary purposes, for gardening purposes, for other purposes. So, recycling, reusing, and to a great extent we can actually try to avoid the larger quantity of material, try to basically use of it in a reduced order. New and improved mining technologies, microbial leaching techniques, restoration of mine lands, revegetation and stabilization. In the European and American system, basically it has been there in their laws as such. When you do the mining, the entire responsibility of restoring that particular area to its normal state is the responsibility of whoever does the mining as such, without which the licenses are not given. Unfortunately, we have rules, we have laws, we have regulations, but the very strict implementation is not been happening, and therefore many times you get to see a very ugly kind of a landscape created by such mining activities as such. So, this is a mine reclamation. This picture basically depicts what different elements are used in reclaiming a mining a region as such. It is the most difficult restoration project, because we have gone down from surface downward for few tens of meters, sometimes in fact few kilometers. So, when you need to do the reclamation, you have to start from that particular depth to bring it to the natural sort of a position as such. So, here you can see how do we actually do the reclamation. First of all, filling up the entire region, bring it to a normal sort of a landscaping, and then the plantation that has been done. That is how the mine reclamation generally takes place. Mitigation is the elevation of some process. Mitigation is related to restoration. Mitigation is sometimes required when a group wants to develop a wild area such as a wetland and thus destroy the wetland. But there are certain amount of controversy that are associated with mitigation. Often the success rate of mitigation project is fairly low. Many ecologists fear that if mitigation is seen to be successful, we will allow many development projects to proceed with the assumption that we can easily recreate nature. However, there is some question as to how well we can actually restore what is lost or destroyed. Restoration process is very time consuming. It does not happen overnight. In fact, sometimes the entire of life system of a human being to a great extent is required for restoring a particular system to its natural original system as such. In 1967, there was an oil spill, and this is a famous story. It's called as a Torrey Canyon oil spill. You can see from this particular picture where it started and what was the spread of this particular sort of a oil spill. It began somewhere at Exxon Valdez, and then you can, in fact, those red lines you are looking at, those are the days. So, in 40 or 50 odd days, it virtually crossed few hundreds of kilometers of the oceanic region as such. And what was the effect of it? The Exxon Valdez oil spill clean efforts continued for next 20-25 odd years, and entire of the ecosystem, including basically the fish species, many of them, in fact many of the microorganisms completely got eradicated from this particular region. This is one gentleman, in fact, who actually lived his life, and I would call him to be a founder of restoration ecology. His name is Tony Bradshaw, and he was responsible in bringing back many of the ecosystems as such. The entire of his life he spent on doing such things as such. So, this is a graph wherein you can see the on one axis you have the ecosystem structure, on the other axis you have the ecosystem functions. Then that graph you are looking at basically, which actually starts from its axis, wherein you can see where was the original ecosystem and how to a great extent it got destroyed. So, to bring it back to normalcy, what different measures one has to take? One could be leave that ecosystem as it is, degraded, so neglect it, or sometimes you can do the replacement, sometimes you can do the rehabilitation, and by the which we actually come closer to the restoration, and sometimes by adding few things, in fact you can do the enhancement also. So, these are various different methods by which we can do the reclamation. These are the flavors of reclamation. Reclamation is the general process of repairing damaged ecosystem. Restoration, here we attempt to put back exactly what existed in the ecosystem prior to the disturbance. Try to understand the subtle difference among these various different words: reclamation, restoration. Third is rehabilitation. Here we attempt to put back most of what existed, not all, most of what existed in the ecosystem prior to the disturbance, but we do not try to put everything back. Replacement, no attempt is made to restore what was lost. Here we replace the original ecosystem with another one. Recovery or neglect, here we allow nature to take its course, depends upon natural process of seed dispersal and germination to start plants, natural dispersal of animals to repopulate the area. And the last part is the enhancement, activity designed to improve the ecosystem even if the change is fairly minimal. So, there are 6 basic steps involved in the ecosystem restoration. First of all, set a goal. Second is determine a strategy and method, and as I told you, it is a very time consuming process. Secondly, human participation is must. It is always been a participatory approach. So, determine a strategy and methods, remove the source of degradation, restore the physical environment, restore the biota, be patient, restoration takes time. So, it is not overnight kind of a work that one can do. In fact, for this whole restoration process, we have to have an in-depth study of every element of the ecosystem in a given area, and unless and until basically you study that particular ecosystem, you will not be bring it back to natural condition, or restoration will not be possible. So, variety of studies in the first place are required, participatory approach is must, and together to a great extent we can get involved and we can restore a damaged, destroyed or a degraded ecosystem.
So, we heard that environmental restoration is not an easy task and instead can be a challenge that is many times faced by generations to come. It is important to identify the state of degradation that has taken place and carefully choose the most suitable restoration method that needs to be employed to make ecosystem functioning sustainable.